few years ago, I found out I was bipolar. I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I got diagnosed as bipolar. You know what she did? Immediately, she took out her phone and Googled cool famous people who were bipolar. Isn't that so sweet? To make me feel less alone. She was like, Drew, you're gonna be fine. Listen to all these awesome people that are bipolar. Kurt Cobain, Robin Williams, Anthony Bourdain. I'm like, wait a minute.
I met you in the Baltimore comedy scene. So I was kind of like just doing open mics around the area for a little while, and you had been already kind of doing it for quite a while. You had kind of like made a name for yourself within the scene, and you started, I think, when you were what, 13 years old,
Yeah, I
and
started when I was 13.
yeah, so very young, and then like you weren't even originally allowed to like kind of perform in bars and stuff until you, I guess, when you turned 16, then you were able to like kind of
Yeah.
perform in bars and clubs, and then you've also, you've toured with Carlos Mencia, Dana Gold, Eliza Schlesinger, and you kind of put out a stand-up comedy special called All My Friends Are Dead, which I do want to kind of touch on a little bit, because a lot of what I do is like kind of just trying to approach things from mental health kind of like perspective, and you kind of like take that and put that into your comedy, which I love. And you also have a new special out, which is called 10 Things I Hate About Drew, which is available on Apple TV, Amazon, YouTube, other platforms. There is it like it's part of like I mean, in addition to like being able to buy it, you can also like get it as part of like a one out of like four or five special,
Yeah,
right?
so you can buy or rent it on Apple TV and other places. On Amazon, it's free now, but it's part of a series called California 5, which
Okay.
is like four other comics from LA, their 30-minute specials. So if you want
Right.
to watch it on Amazon, type in California 5. Because I've had
All right.
friends be like, I searched your name and I can't find it. I'm like, I know it's annoying. You got to type California 5.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Dude, I get so much fucking amnesia. I don't know how I know people sometimes. Like, how do I
I
know
know,
you?
right?
Like
Or I'll lose track of
we
how I met.
obviously like bonded over rap music, and like you
Mm.
came to my one of my rap battles, which I really appreciate. And like obviously like we were both, doing stand-up comedy at the same time. But I don't remember the exact interaction like that where well, like the first interaction that we had, where it like somehow like led to like you coming out to check out me like doing a rap battle.
Yeah. I don't remember. I'm assuming it was at High Tops is my guess
Yeah,
because I
for
know I
sure.
see you there a lot. So it was probably at High Tops, but I'm the same way. I feel like with almost everyone I know, I don't remember the first interaction. I'm just like I've always known that person. I don't know how
Yeah.
I met them.
And like I've kept you in my circle because like, number one, you seem like a really cool dude. And also like we've always had that kind of like bond of like rap music. Like you did like a
Yeah.
podcast, which by the way, if you check out, on any like podcast platform, Bar Hoppin by Drew Landry, you have kind of like a whole kind of podcast where you kind of like break down like different rap verses and stuff. So there's one
Yeah.
that like we kind of talk about Royce to 5'9" and kind of stand for a little
Yeah, and
bit.
I haven't done that podcast in years. I've been considering bringing it back because I think I started it during COVID, and I
Right.
might have, when things opened back up, I might have stopped the podcast. I'm trying to remember the specific timeline, but I remember having you on it, and that was one of my favorite episodes.
I mean, I enjoyed it, like, cause like I mean, I love geeking out over fucking rap and like, just being able to talk about like the actual, like forget about like, I don't know, it's like everybody always talks about rap music from like a high level perspective, but like let's
Mm.
put like let's talk about what rappers are actually doing, like what the rhyme schemes are, what the wordplay
Yeah,
is,
and let's
and that
talk
stuff,
about
like.
yeah, our specific favorite verses. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, and so that was such a fucking fun and cool, concept. And I would love to see you bring that back as well. But I did want to kind of like, talk about, your kind of experience in the stand-up comedy world. Maybe starting, I guess, with your special, which is called All My Friends Are Dead. which is, kind of referring to, I guess you had, two friends. They were twins, right? Ellie and
Yes,
Tucker.
yes.
And so
Mhm.
you kind of talk about when you were younger, around 8 years old or so, I think Tucker
Mhm.
died. And then, like, later, as you gotten older, Ellie had passed away. And
Mhm.
so you kind of talk about that and, make that, kind of a part of, your whole kind of, special. And, I look, I have, I grew up in a weird little life or whatever, and like part of what gravitated me towards stand-up comedy, granted, there's a lot of things. I mean, the very first time I was like super into stand-up comedy was like Dom Irera, and he was just like kind of just like he wasn't really getting super personal or anything like that, but like
Yeah,
he was kind of like my gateway drug into like the
he's
stand-up
great.
comedy
So
world.
funny.
Yeah,
Because
and he
I
was.
mean, if I'm not mistaken, you've had a lot of loss as well. Probably more than me.
Oh,
I
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know about more than, but like, I mean, yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't want to get too deep into that, but I just meant like, in terms of like, Dom Irera, like, he was like kind of my like introduction into stand-up comedy, and like, as I like started listening to a lot more stand-up comedians, I don't know. Like I listen to a lot of different people. I listen to like Louis C.K. I listen to like Louis Black and just a lot. I don't know. It's like off the top, I'm probably gonna draw a lot of blanks. I listen to Dave
Mhm.
Chappelle, and a lot of comedians who I think kind of gave me a perspective of the world that like I was only at the time maybe 13, 14, 15, or 16 years old, and when you're that age, you don't really have a great perspective of like the world, how everything is. You don't
Mhm.
understand politics, or at least I didn't, right? Like I know some people would have been like, oh, I was 10 years old and I understood like
Yeah,
how
and I knew it
filibusters
all.
work. Yeah, but like I learned a lot of that stuff from stand-up comedy, and I think um, there's one aspect of it which is political, which is kind of like talking about the world as a whole, but then there's also like another aspect of it, which talks about like kind of just your personal experience and on a more human level, like what things you've gone through, and kind of taking that and making those stories into something that's comedic, but I think also something that can be relatable to other people, where they can, kind of like, listen to it and almost feel the same level of, catharticism that you might have gotten from writing that material.
Mhm.
The very, like, one stand-up, like, special that stands out to me more than any other is by Chris Titus, which was called Norman Rockwell is Bleeding. I've
That's an
listened to that
amazing
so many
special. That's one
times.
of my favorite
Yeah.
specials. Oh, that
And
special is
so
unbelievable.
and the irony, right, is that I wouldn't necessarily call it the most funny of all, specials I've listened to, but it is the one that gives me the most replayability, the one that makes me feel like I can connect to what they're saying. I can connect to like, I mean, like, granted, he had such a wild life, like he literally like his mother committed murder, right? Like, and that was part of,
Yeah,
his
murder and suicide, and
yeah,
I mean, yeah, he just had the most insane life, and he made it hilarious. The thing
right.
I love about that special is, and I wanted to capture something like this, and All My Friends Are Dead, is that special, it doesn't feel like a one-man show. Like it's constant punchlines. Even
Right.
when it's serious, he still doesn't go
I
30
literally like
seconds
would
without a joke.
I'm very analytical of this, right? So I will watch it and like be like, oh yeah, he literally when you're saying like constant punchlines, you're not exaggerating. It's literally like every line that he says like has a punchline to it. Whether
Yeah.
whether you think it's like the most amazing joke you've ever heard, but he is consistent, like
Yeah,
punchline, punchline,
absolutely.
punchline, and like they're good jokes in terms of like just understanding like structurally like what contributes to a joke, the misdirection that comes with it.
Mhm. Yeah.
um so I mean, yeah, I mean, like, that is for sure one that like always stands out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's an incredible special. That's easily one of my favorite specials.
Is there maybe any like stand-up comedian that you would say maybe influences you more than others, or is there?
That's a good question. I think it's been a hodgepodge of so many people. Now, because I started so young, I didn't really know myself yet, even as a person. So I went through phases where there were different comedians that I was ripping off. And I don't mean taking their jokes, but doing their persona and their delivery. Like I went through a phase
Right.
when I was younger, when I was just being Sam Kinison. A phase where I was just being Jesselnick, just being Mitch Hedberg. The big
Out of
one was
all those people, like I have the hardest time seeing you be Sam. What is it? Sam. What is it? Kindle. I'm
yeah,
bad.
Sam Kinison. Oh yeah, it was I
Innocent.
mean it
Because
was it was
he like
terrible.
yells a lot, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just like straight up.
I mean, all of those phases were terrible. Now, when I first started, and I know a lot of people hate him, but one of my introductions to stand up was Dane Cook. This was the
Right.
mid 2000s when Dane Cook was huge. So I saw his
Yeah.
HBO
I mean,
special.
Vicious Circle, not for nothing. Like I feel like is one
Yeah,
of
great
my,
special. Well,
yeah.
I still think he's funny, but for the first few years I did it, I was very much a Dane Cook ripoff. If you watch
Right.
my really old stuff, I was doing his delivery and I was jumping around like him and talking in his cadence. It's really awkward to watch, but
Yeah.
I think over time, all my influences, they kind of blended together, but then I got to know myself more as a person. And I also think with stand up, and I'm sure it's the same with music, you start out just kind of ripping off the people you admire because that's
Mhm.
what you know. And then over time, you develop your own voice. I think
Yeah.
organically, I hope, kind of found my own voice, but it's hard to pinpoint one specific person. I will say, with All My Friends Are Dead, one of the biggest influences, Christopher Titus, Norman Rockwell is Bleeding. That was a big influence. The other one was Patton Oswalt had a special called Annihilation that was about his wife's death.
Okay.
And
I
in
haven't
that
peeped that one.
special, it's great. I think it's 2017. So the first half is about politics, and then the second half is all about his wife's death. And he manages to make it really poignant and beautiful, but like Chris Titus, consistently funny, just nonstop punchlines. And I was really trying to aim for that mixture of constant laughs, but a poignant tribute at the same time. So
Right.
that was the biggest influence with that specific special was Patton Oswalt Annihilation. Not necessarily his delivery. We have different styles, but the overall vibe of
Yeah.
Annihilation.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, like music, So I mean, I've definitely kind of gone through the same phases where, like, there were times in like when I started like making music, I definitely like tried to like emulate Eminem to like one degree, and then like at another point, I was trying to like emulate like maybe more DMX or just different like rappers and like artists and stuff that I don't know. Even now, it's just like I almost like kind of refuse to give myself an identity because I
Mhm.
just like I enjoy being able to do whatever I want to do.
Oh yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
like when I started a song that I'm working on right now. I have a friend of mine who's a guitarist and he is kind of making the backing vocal or the backing track for it. So I've only recorded like vocals and I only recorded like kind of harmonies over those vocals. But like it's kind of like a folky like kind of folk pop type of thing. Um, and so I just like I really just at this point in my life I do music and I do even if I do comedy, which I don't do a lot these days, but like if I do anything creative, I just want to do what I want to do. And like
Yeah, you
yes,
don't
I
want to
do
box
take
yourself
in
in.
some influence from like different people. Mitch Hedberg for sure is like one of the biggest
Mhm.
like influences on like how I write because I used to do a lot of one-liners and I still kind of like would lean into that more so in the comedy scene. But yeah, I mean, like it's very much, kind of like once you try everything, where you're like, oh, okay, I tried to do like what that person did, and then you're like, oh, these parts of me like felt right, and they were organic to who I am,
Yeah, and this
and
part wasn't. We're like this
yeah, and
did.
then you kind of
Yeah,
just like figure out where that middle ground is between like multiple people who might like they all have part of themselves in them that like represents who you are. And so I
exactly.
think
Yeah.
that kind of transpires into rap music or comedy or whatever you
Oh
do.
yeah, I'm sure if it's you're a filmmaker, a writer, whatever it is, I think you start out emulating your heroes and then you hopefully kind of move away from that and their influences, but you're not trying to be them anymore.
Right. So I mean, let's back up a little bit.
Mhm.
So I know in your stand-up comedy specials, you kind of like talk about, I also just want to give a basic disclaimer because like in the back of my head, I always have my level of anxiety. So if I don't give my disclaimers, I feel that anxiety always like sits
I'm
in my head.
similar.
Yeah. So like like I call these the scary hours. You are you're in what, California, right? So it's like 4 o'clock
Yeah.
where you are. 7:12 over here. So I'm already drinking. I'm chilling, having a good time. So I'm
Yeah.
not entirely sober. I'm just, putting that out there so I don't need to like, adhere to any particular standards of what people think I should, adhere to. Um
Yeah.
but yeah, I just wanted to talk about like kind of like your special. You talk about like being bipolar.
Mm.
So you have a joke, which I will probably like go back and just edit into the beginning of it so we don't have to cover it. But it's like the whole Kurt Cobain, your
Yeah.
mom like talking about like all these different artists and stuff, and being like, oh yeah, these people are also all bipolar and they've all committed suicide.
Yeah.
And so. I wanted to know, like, okay, well, can we kind of like maybe just dive into number one, like what does it mean to be bipolar? I mean, like, like, how do you, like, how have you experienced life in a way that you feel like maybe other people haven't, or like, what is it, like, what kind of like struggles have you kind of had to kind of work with in terms of your just, general demeanor in terms of how your brain works and trying to function in a society where a lot of people may not be like you, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
it's a roller coaster. It's phases of depressive phases and manic phases. Depressive phases is exactly what it sounds like. You're just super depressed, down. Nothing really makes you feel better because it's in your head. So in theory, everything in your life could be fine, but it's just a chemical thing. And mania is the opposite, but not necessarily in a good way, where you're manic, but it means you're too hyper, you have too much energy, your brain is going a million miles a minute. You're honestly in the past, I think I've gotten better with this, but to me, being manic, and there's a lot of bipolar people, was to be reckless. So if I was manic, that means I'm partying more, I'm drinking more, I'm angrier. I have more confidence, but not necessarily in a good way. It can mean a lot of things. Mania can be you're too happy, you're too angry, you're cocky, but it usually turns into some type of recklessness. Or if not that, you just can't sleep. Or,
Right.
I'll have phases where I'll be acting a certain way, and my girlfriend will bring me back down to earth by being like, "You're just manic right now." And I was like, "Holy shit, that is true." And labeling it to me makes it easier to deal with. Where I remember I got diagnosed as bipolar when I was 18, and I was relieved because I was like, "Oh, this everything finally makes sense. My life
Right.
makes sense now." So I think labeling it is just very helpful because you
Yeah.
know what you're dealing with, and you can be like, this is a chemical thing, and it can
Yeah.
be, at least to a certain extent, dealt with and fixed.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know, I've always felt like off. Like I don't know what it is. Like I think my assumption of myself is that I'm more like kind of maybe like ADHD or something of that ilk.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, like you said, like labeling it and like trying to understand exactly like what it is that like what it is you have in order to understand like how it is that you're supposed to act differently in order to
Yeah.
kind of accommodate those things. I've always like kind of struggled with that. I don't know. I've tried like I've gone to therapy. I've gone to like a psychiatrist, and then like they were like, oh, I can give you like antipsychotic medicines, but like I can't give you ADHD medicine without having to go through like your insurance for approval, and my insurance won't approve it because they need some kind of proof that like I don't know, just like it's so unnecessarily complicated, I
Yeah, all
think.
the
But
red tape. It's
yeah,
infuriating.
and so it's just like. I don't know. It's hard to like, it's hard to like. I mean, when you even when you describe being bipolar, there's like parts of that where I'm like, oh yeah, maybe that could be me, and that's kind
Mm.
of like a problem I think that we as a society have is like, we all have like different types of symptoms of things, and we don't necessarily like have the diagnosis of like what
Mm.
it is that we're supposed to like what it is that like really like kind of causes an issue. Like bipolar is obviously different than being ADHD. Like if I were
Yeah.
ADHD, I don't know as much about bipolar, but like ADHD tends to like be like, you're operating at like a deficit of dopamine. And so,
Yeah.
it's like your brain is constantly seeking like, cheap dopamine, type things. So that might be like porn, or it might be alcohol or
Alcohol, whatever it
drugs,
is,
or yeah, yeah.
drugs.
And like those things for sure, are the quick, bam, you're
Mhm.
happy or whatever, or at least,
Yeah.
you're chilled out compared to how you operate at a normal
Yeah,
level.
or less in your head. And the
Yeah,
thing is, the diagnosis is so important because how are you gonna try to tackle a problem if you don't know exactly what the problem is?
right,
So the diagnosis to me is it's so essential and it's a relief because now you
right.
know what you're dealing with. So I can imagine it being really infuriating to be like, maybe it's bipolar, maybe it's ADHD, maybe it's
Well,
borderline.
yeah, the only like part of the reason why I think like so this is almost kind of like a point of frustration for me, right? Like so I reached out to my like psych I'm just, I go on to like tangents. So I just talk
Mhm. Yeah,
just
that's
normal
fine.
conversation. But like so I reached out to like my psychiatrist, right? And I said, look, I think ADHD is my issue. I literally I've talked to my therapist for like over a year. I've talked to my wife who has known me for like 13 years, and both of them are like,
Mhm.
yeah, you probably got ADHD. And like, so I go to my psychiatrist and I'm like, well, I'm gonna be honest, right? I'm gonna tell you that like, okay, my grandmother was bipolar and she killed herself, and my aunt, my mom's twin sister, was also she also killed herself. I don't know if she was diagnosed by bipolar, but my grandmother was. And so immediately like she's like giving me antipsychotics then, rather than like trying to give me like any type of like medicine that might be helpful for ADHD, I think. And like, I mean, yeah, I get that there is, a hereditary, thing, but that doesn't mean that,
Mhm.
you should necessarily kind of jump to like giving anybody like,
Yeah, jump to a conclusion.
yeah. And so it's just like, I don't know, it's just like our medical system is a joke, and I'm
Mhm.
very
Oh yeah,
disgruntled
it's
with it in
dystopian.
many ways, and healthcare and all that other crap. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm not trying to be overly negative. I'm just also trying to be just like
Oh no,
honest
you're
and
just being
like,
honest. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so I mean, like, at what point, like, maybe did you? I mean, like, I don't know. Was there a point? Like, I feel like when I originally saw you do stand up, I don't feel like you were kind of talking about or tackling like mental health things.
Mhm.
And whereas when you came out with like all my friends are dead, like then you kind of like gravitated more so toward those like
Yeah.
type of topics. So was there like a moment in your life where you're like, oh, I'm gonna shift like the way
Yeah.
that I'm approaching comedy?
There were a few moments. So one of them was way back in the day, I want to say 2016-ish. The first joke I wrote that was kind of very vulnerable about my mental health was a joke about being in a mental hospital when I was a teenager.
Right,
And I told that story and it was doing well, but I kind of shelved it for a while because it still felt too vulnerable to talk about. And
right,
then fast forward to 2021 when my friend Ellie passed. I was writing a lot of jokes about it, not necessarily for therapeutic reasons, but just because you write jokes about what you're thinking about. So I had a
right,
lot of jokes about it, and I never talked about the Tucker situation, my friend that died when I was 8, Ellie's twin before, but due to talking about Ellie, part of the backstory to that whole saga was Tucker. So I started
right.
talking to Tucker on stage. And the way the special came about is I thought these are jokes that I love, but they're very personal, and I don't necessarily want to do them forever. And I also don't want to do these aren't jokes you can do at any show. There's got to be a specific vibe. Like if I'm
Right.
doing 5 minutes at the Comedy Store, I'm not going to use that whole 5 minutes to tell this terrifying story.
Yeah.
So that's when I thought I'm going to put all of these into a special and put it out there. And when I wanted the special to have an arc, almost like a 3-act structure, like a movie. And being in a mental hospital as a teenager, a big part of that was number one, being bipolar, and number two, the Tucker situation. So I took that joke from 2016-ish and put that in the special, and that kind of helped tie everything together. But I'd say before I started writing the special, I hadn't really tackled mental health that much in my stand-up, and that's when it really started. And I don't tackle it all the time, but I do tackle it obviously more than I used to. But
Right.
putting that special out, it was an interesting, it was put out independently, so I don't want to call it a debut special, but it was
Right.
the first special that I put out, and it was all very personal. My comedy isn't always personal, so it was a vulnerable feeling like this is the first full body of work I'm putting out there that's not,
Yeah.
a 5 minute set or whatever. So there was definitely a exciting but scary feeling like I'm putting something really personal out there, which can be
Right.
frightening.
Yeah. I mean, look, I can only like tell it from my perspective, right? And so like, I'm not saying like I am, I've listened to every single stand-up special in the world, but I probably listen to more stand-up comedy than like the average person. Like I used to
Oh
go to
yeah,
sleep
definitely.
I used to go to sleep every night just listening to it before I ever like, tried to do open mics, and that's part of why I tried to do it because like I don't know, something about stand-up like really like, and like I used to just like kind of listen to the same special over and over and over again, and kind of like be able to memorize like every single word.
Oh yeah.
And so for me, it was just like, something about it was, cathartic. It was like, it was the ability to kind of connect with other people on a way that is like more personal than just like, oh, this is some random stranger telling jokes or whatever. It might be even like a parasocial type of thing where like, I've listened to this and I know who that person is. I understand their vibes and like who they are, their values and all these like things that they kind of carry with them as a human. And so, personally, when I listen to, your special, like All My Friends Are Dead, like I get that same vibe from that. I feel like, I can listen to it and kind of tell who you are beneath the surface. And like that to me, I think is hard to really put into it. Like you can't just like, be like, oh, is this funny or is it not? It's literally just like it is a connection that you make to another like person just like listening to something that they created. And yes, it is funny, but it's like you're also creating something that's deeper than that and more like, especially like, it's like if I think if you're somebody who has gone through like, trauma, or whether they have gone through something exactly like what you've gone through, the ability to kind of like listen to that and like just resonate with it. Like granted, like Christopher Titus I've listened to many times. I have no idea what it's like to have a mom who has like killed somebody, or who she was also like clinically insane. She was like in a mental ward, I think. I don't remember the full details, but like, granted, my life was very different from his, but I still like something about like listening to his, his stories, his, comedy, helped me like feel like, okay, my life isn't like that far away from like what other people are experiencing, if that makes sense. Like,
Oh yeah.
and
It's
so I feel
comforting.
like your special kind of does that for me as well.
Oh, I really appreciate that because that's what I was going for. So I really appreciate you saying that. I can't remember who said it, but I heard a quote once that resonated with me, which is the more personal it is, the more universal it is.
Right,
So, like, let's say I listen to Patton Oswalt Annihilation. I've never been married, I've never had a dead wife, but that you resonate with the grief. Where if
right,
I were to just go up and talk about grief in general, like here's the thing about grief. You ever know it wouldn't be that interesting. But if I go up and talk about my dead friends, even if you don't have dead friends, you've dealt with grief in some way.
right.
And that to me that makes it easy to connect to. The specificity makes it more universal, like that quote says. I wish I could remember who said it because it's such a great quote.
Right. So I guess when you had started writing that special, how long I assume it was obviously closer to Elliott's passing than
Mm.
Tucker's. So um when like at what point were you like, okay, I want to take this and like kind of make it into like a comedy special?
I,
There was a weird, sorry, there was a weird thing that
mm,
you mentioned in there that her favorite movie was Sausage Party.
mm.
Is that true? Like, whose
It
favorite movie
is.
is Sausage Party?
I wouldn't say it was her number one favorite movie, but
Yeah,
it was up there. But little things like that, like having a sentimental connection to Sausage Party, to me that's funny and it's so
right.
specific.
Yeah,
But things like that, I'd say it was. So when Ellie passed, I had a show. I went to Maryland for the funeral and all that, and I had a show right when I got back. And it was a show I was hosting, and it was a charity thing for a friend that we put on together. So I couldn't get out of it. And I did 10 minutes of jokes just about Ellie, and this is when it had just happened
right.
and it went surprisingly well. So that kind of is what started the spark. So I'd say for about 3 to 6 months, I was just doing jokes about it. And I had enough jokes about it that it dawned on me like, oh, this could be a special. I could put these all together and create an arc. So a lot of it was the special is only 22 minutes. It was because it's on YouTube. It was originally, I want to say 45-ish minutes of material. So a lot of it was running jokes, and I wanted it to be short because, short attention spans. I don't know if
Yeah.
someone's gonna watch a
I mean, we
45
live in
minute.
the TikTok era, so I mean, even
Yeah,
20 minutes is too long, right?
exactly. So I wanted to cut it down to 20-ish minutes. So a lot of it was trial and error and doing shows and being like, this isn't quite funny enough to make it. So a
Right.
lot of it was writing a lot of material and then cutting out what didn't work quite well enough. But I'd say it was about, let's say, so she passed in late 2021. I recorded it in late 2022. And I want to say 6 months after her passing is when I decided this could be a special. So then it was 6 months of having all this material and polishing it and cutting out what doesn't work to try to give it a shape and a structure.
Right. Um, so I mean, in terms of your comedy special, the 10 Things I Hate About Drew, which is your most recent one, is there kind of like a different direction that you've kind of gone with that?
It was absolutely a different direction. I wanted 10 Things I Hate About Drew to kind of be the opposite. I wanted to just be pure silliness, nothing deep, just goofiness, just pure stupidity, just to show I didn't want to pigeonhole myself as I'm the guy that only talks about mental health. So I wanted to
Right.
kind of pull 180, and it's like I just want to make something really silly as a palate
Can
cleanser.
I
So
can
I
I
can call
say
it hard.
though, like I mean, granted, I'm not trying to influence you one way or another, but like when you said that, I was thinking of like there's a comedian. His name is like DJ, sorry, TJ Detmer or something like that. So he is like a deaf comedian, which like I am partially deaf. So
Yeah.
hold on, let me see if I can find his actual name. But um yeah, I can't remember. I can't find his name. He's a deaf comedian. And he has a joke about like how DJ Demers, that's what it is, DJ Demers. He's very
Oh
funny.
yeah, I've heard that name. Yeah.
But he kind of talks about being like deaf and like his own like experience with hearing aids and stuff. And honestly, like he has a lot of jokes where I'm like, damn, I wish I could have like came up with the same joke and like
Mm.
like it made so much, it's so relatable for me obviously because it's hard to find that type of, comedian. But
Oh yeah, very.
he has a joke about how like he didn't want to be like pigeonholed as like a deaf comedian, so he didn't want to like have too many jokes about like his hearing aids or whatever. And but then he like heard about like some like I don't know if it was like a blue collar like comedy type of guy who like specialized in one particular thing, and they made like $45 million, and he was like, oh, I almost had to turn my
Yeah.
hearing aids up, and it was just like he just took that and like just turned it into like a joke because it was obviously like he the it's one thing to like say I don't want to pigeonhole myself into something, but like there also might be a need for that something, there. I mean, like
Yeah,
I'm not
you're
trying to
not
convince
wrong.
you.
And there's nothing wrong with having a niche. It can be helpful to have a niche,
Yeah,
especially with things are so oversaturated and
Dude, I
you
mean, like if you
have
look at like
something
where we
unique.
are right now as a society, like I think we could use a lot more stand-up comedians who like are into like mental health and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
oh, absolutely,
Um,
especially right now. Yeah.
like right now, it's like I still don't know who Carlin is. Like where's the Carlin of
Yeah.
2026? Like Bill Burr is the
Yeah.
closest thing I could
Bill
think of,
Burr is the
maybe.
closest, but yeah, we don't really have a Carlin right now. I'd say
Yeah.
like maybe 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, I'd say Chappelle was maybe our Carlin or Chris Rock, but right
Chappelle
now,
is on his own kind of bullshit. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, he has wins and losses, right? Like, I
yes.
don't dislike all everything he says, but at the same time, it's like he's not Carlin. Like, he's not.
Yeah, and he's not who he used to be.
Yeah,
But I
he is very
agree.
obviously kind of like influenced by money, which I don't think Carlin
Yeah.
was, and that is the
No,
key
not at
difference.
all. Yeah, all 100%.
So it's like I don't know. Part of me is like, man, I almost like want to go back into stand up just so I can like try to be more political because it's like it like kind of makes me sad like because like we don't have that. I mean, I also feel the same way in music too, where it's just like we don't have the messaging that we need to have I
Yeah,
think as a
there's kind of an
country.
absence of that. And it's also something interesting, and this might sound melodramatic and it could be, but I feel like we've seen a weird, unsettling shift in the past few years where, for lack of a better way to say it, there have been people that have used stand-up almost kind of for evil. And evil might be too dramatic of a word, but
Yeah,
using it for like these comics that, platformed Trump or had him on the podcast and laughed at his jokes and but
right.
or these comics that are normalizing fascism, normalizing shitting on trans people, all this stuff where
Yeah.
people using comedic talents for negative real world consequences.
All
And
right.
again, that might sound dramatic. I don't know how else to word it, but
Yeah.
there is an absence. Like we need positivity right now.
Right.
We just do. And we do need those voices. We need our Carlins or our whoever's.
Right. So I mean, like, would you mind talking about like maybe the topic of Joe Rogan and kind of just like, cause like, I mean, you're a stand-up fan. I am also a stand-up fan. I don't know if you've like watched like a lot of his stand-up specials. I actually like. Funnily enough, like Joe Rogan was one of the stand-up comedians that like I like kind of like listened to when I was younger, and like I learned a lot from the world, like kind of the world, like from his perspective.
Yeah.
Granted, I've also learned a lot from like, for example, like Doug Stanhope, who is like, both of those guys, they were at one point, they were like Man Show. They were the host of like the
Yeah.
TV show called The Man Show. And, you know, we can go over all that, but like it's like old 90s bullshit. And like, but the main point being that like they diverged in two different directions almost. And it's like I feel very like divided about it sometimes, right? Like I do like I don't have entirely negative like it's not negative feelings toward Joe Rogan, but at the
Mm,
same time, some of the things he has said and has done are things that I do feel negatively about, right? Like, does that make sense?
yes.
Like, where it's just
Yeah.
like
And
I think like he has like like I used to listen to his stand-up specials and like he had some like really good insights I think about like how the universe is like his whole
mm,
like kind of special was talking about like how we're all like monkeys on a like a floating rock
flying monkeys
in
in
the
space.
universe. Yeah, and
Yeah, well, I feel similar where Joe Rogan had a special in 2006, I want to say. It's just called Joe Rogan Live. And it was a
right,
phenomenal special. I remember seeing it on like HBO or wherever it was. And his first few specials, Joe Rogan's early stuff was very funny. I think Joe Rogan is interesting in that he's this comic who started a podcast and kind of Mr. Magoo'd himself into having a massive platform. Like when Joe Rogan started his podcast in 2010 or so, I'm sure he had no idea it would become the fucking biggest platform in the world. And
right,
I have mixed feelings about it, but there's now this whole Rogan verse. There's this whole community, almost this whole subgenre of Joe Rogan comedians that he's lifted up.
right,
They all migrated
Andrew
to
Schultz,
Hudson.
and
Yeah,
I don't
Andrew
know.
Schultz, all them. Some of them, like, I don't know if I'd put Shane Gillis in that category or not. Shane Gillis is on his
Kind of,
podcast a
yeah.
lot.
I mean,
I think Shane,
he,
yeah,
but the thing is, like Andrew, like not even that. Like, forget about that. Like Joe Rogan himself is not like he's not the like this is the thing that like kind of bothers me about liberals a little bit because I mean I would probably define myself like as I guess a leftist or whatever, but like there are also like some liberals who just don't like acknowledge or whatever the nuance in Joe Rogan.
oh yeah,
Like
and
he's
I
not
think
purely like oh just straight up like hateful like anti like immigrant anti whatever he will speak out against ICE, he will speak out against
yeah,
the genocide in Gaza, he will speak
mm,
out about things, but like at the same time he also does have kind of like I would argue maybe a midwit type of perspective
yeah,
on
he's
things.
yeah. So two things. Like I said, there's this whole Rogan verse, and a lot of them are very funny. Shane Gillis, I think, is hilarious. I know he has had his controversies, but Joe Rogan's interesting in that. And I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Every time I see a headline about something he said, he it's like his opinions change based on who he's talking to. Where I've seen clips of him, defending the Trump administration, and then I see a clip the next day of look at what ICE is doing. It's so fucked up. And then the next day he's defend. It's just all over the place. And
Right.
I mean, I think that's how a lot of people are in general. Their opinions change on a dime. That's not inherently bad.
Yeah.
It's better
Well,
than
I mean,
having
I
that.
can I just kind of maybe offer a little pushback there? So like,
Yes,
let me.
yes.
I'm thinking like maybe like in the like Obama administration, right? Like, yeah, there some people like look at it with like a rose colored lens or whatever, but
Yeah.
there were things that he did. I think like bombings in Syria. He definitely like
Awful, awful things.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
all
it's
the
like
drone
it's
strikes.
not necessarily hypocritical for me to say like, oh, I don't like this thing that they did, like, but I also like other
But
things.
I
Like I
like
like
this.
the fact that he legalized gay marriage, right? Like, I mean, I think
Yes.
that both of those things can be
Yeah.
true. And
It's
maybe,
yeah, no, and
Shane
there
Gillis
is
and Joe Rogan also, should be allowed that same level, I think, of, nuance.
and I do agree. And I do think Trump becoming president the first time, not to get too political, it almost I think a lot of people, and I put myself in this category, pay less attention to politics before Trump came along, just because Trump made
Yeah, I mean, I'm
everything
definitely in
so,
that
for
camp
lack
too.
of a better word, entertaining. Everything became so outlandish. But then thinking about politics more made me look back more on, say, Obama, who I don't dislike, but I learned things that Obama did that I think were heinous, where it's
Right.
like, I can't defend this. I do agree that there's so much nuance to all this. And I'm not saying I like or dislike Joe Rogan. I just think it's fascinating how he kind of unintentionally stumbled into being this really influential voice. Once again, I
Right.
don't think he intended to become this.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think no matter how you put it, he, without a doubt, whether it was intentional or not, he definitely was a contributor, a very key contributor to like us kind of moving towards a more fascist like kind of
Yes.
country.
And
Um,
yeah, and maybe he
yeah,
didn't do it knowingly. I don't know. But once again, there's a level of nuance there where I've seen clips of him where I'm like, this guy seems nice, but then I see clips where it's like this guy did contribute at least a little bit to the situation we're in now. And we just live in such a bizarre time where it's like, why do we live in a world where a comedian with a podcast is this massively influential? That's
yeah.
weird. Like it shouldn't
Well,
be.
so I mean, yeah, I agree with you, but at the same time, like I also feel like it bothers me because I see the elite people like what's Larry Ellison, who's currently trying
Mm,
to buy like Netflix and
yeah, by
HBO. In addition
HBO.
to owning YouTube, he bought TikTok. Like
Oh,
these are
owning everything.
leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are like Mark Zuckerberg. You can go down the list. He owns WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, all
Yeah,
these other
everything.
like,
Yeah.
platforms. So they're all like controlling these, like media outlets in order to control who has a voice and who does not. And
Mm.
to some degree, like what that means is you're taking voices and like opinions away from the ordinary person, like even a person like you or me, where we just kind of sit down and we have a conversation and we talk about like what are our perspectives of what is going on in the world. Granted, like I don't think I'm the most brilliant person in the world, but I'm at least, genuine. I'm at least, willing to admit like, hey, there are some things I don't know. There are some things that like,
Yeah.
I can improve upon. And like that to me is more authentic than what we kind of get out of our Congress people at this point in our
Oh
lives,
yeah.
where
Yeah.
and so it's like we kind of need that almost to an extent where it's just like I don't want to take the voice away from regular people, but I also want to make sure that like regular people from every single demographic are able to have like a voice, right? Like where it's not like only like people like Joe Rogan have some kind of like conversation about what's going on. Like, okay, well, what's the left, perspective of like the same thing, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. Everything about where the world that we live in is quite fucking kind of
And
scary.
you touched on something that I think is important and something that I don't think there's enough of right now. Admitting you don't know something. Like I feel like now no one is capable of
Yeah,
admitting they don't know something or admitting they were wrong. Like there's
right.
nothing wrong with being
That
wrong.
that that seems to be a bigger problem, I think, almost.
A
Like I
massive,
get it.
everyone is so stubborn where I think things would be so much
But
better.
but I also think people are defensive to a degree because I think like let's say, conservatism, for example. Like I think there are a lot of liberals who are just like straight up like, they want to shame the fuck out of every, Trump voter, and I get it, but like at the same time, I don't think that creates a better result than like just
Yeah.
being accepting and being like, okay, you made this mistake. Let's acknowledge that, like, okay, that was not the right thing to do, and let's move on to like what the solution is. But
Yeah.
instead, they just want to like focus on, like over and over and over, every single day. Trump did this today. Trump did that today, and it's like that doesn't help the solution. It
Well,
doesn't it doesn't move us toward like
yes.
unity.
Well, and that's the thing. And I do think like one thing that does bother me, and I get why people think this way. Like I understand it, but when you see, and this doesn't happen often, but when you see someone online that says something like, look, I voted for Trump and now all this stuff is happening, I regret it. Like when you see someone like that from time to time, people on the left go, "No, fuck you. We don't forgive you." Where when someone
I
is
think
trying
that
to
takes a lot of
join,
fucking courage and a
it
lot of
takes a
fucking like.
not only that, when someone is trying to join your team, you don't kick
Well, it's not
that
even
like
joining the
no.
team, like just
Yeah,
admitting
that's
that, like, it's just like this is
yeah.
not what you thought you were going to get out of this, particular candidate,
Yeah,
right?
but I
Like,
think it's fine for when people go, no, fuck you, where it's like you're hurting
yeah,
you're hurting your cause if people are joining, if people are starting to agree with you, and it's like, no, I don't like that you agree with me.
right,
Where it's just this thing where we need unity, and I have no fucking idea what the answer is.
yeah,
I I agree that there's too much, but I'll put it this way. I voted for Biden, but when all the shit was happening with Gaza, when he was giving money to Netanyahu and kind of helping to fund a genocide, I
right,
was able to go, I'm disgusted with this. I'm
yeah.
disgusted with this. I'm disgusted with the Biden administration. And I just wish there was more of that on the right, where it's just, why do you have to defend everything?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, I did vote for like Kamala, but like at the same time, it's like I just like I was my main concern is and always was about the economic, situation I feel like we're in. The way that I viewed it then, and I still view it now, is that like we were in a position where previously the Democrats were previously very corrupted by large, corporate interest, and that includes like, health insurance companies and even like education, like these are big, corporations that have been able to generate a lot of profit. But what happened was that during the COVID pandemic, a lot of people who were like almost exclusively like, based on like online business, people like Elon Musk, people like Mark Zuckerberg, people like Jeff Bezos and Larry Ellison, all of those people magnified their wealth by a lot, like by like 10, so these people, like if you look at like Elon Musk, I can't compare, but he has a net worth of 750 billion or so, and that is able to like that is more than United Healthcare, the entire corporation. So this is one
Yeah.
person who has more money than the entire corporation of United Healthcare, and that means that that person has that much influence and power over our
Oh, yeah.
elections and over our how the laws are being made. And so what I'm seeing very clearly is that number one, he bought out Twitter, which I don't think was, a thing that he thought was going to be profitable. I think he just bought it because like it was going to give him access over media and be like, okay, well we're gonna turn it into 4chan basically, which it is now, which is like, we're just gonna like say the most outrageously racist stuff, and we're gonna have like, porn that is like, bondage and like, just like creating like women as like very submissive and so forth. And like all of these things are meant to serve his, ideological, like perspective of what he thinks that the world should be, which he outwardly claims himself to be like a white Christian, kind of nationalist type of person.
Yeah.
And like I don't like, but the thing is, like, when Trump became president, he was more in bed with those people like Elon Musk, people like, what's his name? Peter Thiel from Palantir. All of these people are 100% influencing our government, but like, it was like whether you're gonna, like, my idea of that particular election was like you're either going to have Kamala Harris, who is like influenced by all these corporations and those particularly pro-Israel lobbyists and so forth, but like then also you had Trump, who was like kind of even more like toward like Elon Musk and like these people who have all the wealth, and like so like it just didn't seem like a good trade-off to me, like where it was just like but the problem is that there's not a good solution, right? If we had politicians who actually cared about United States citizens, we would have ranked choice voting where I can be like, okay, well, if Biden and or well, not Biden, Harris, if Harris and Trump are both running, but then there's like also a third like independent candidate, I can rank them and be like, okay, I want the independent candidate first, and then I'll go with like Biden second, and then Trump third. But then like that would actually give the independent candidate an opportunity to win. That's
which
but
they
there
don't
is no
want.
opportunity for that candidate in our current system,
Yes,
and they keep it like that very deliberately.
Oh yeah, they want someone in the system. That's why I don't know what the solution is, but it's definitely not just some normal Democrat becoming president in 2028. Like that's not going to save us because it's
I mean,
better.
yeah, no,
But it's not.
so many of the Democrats feel very corrupt to me. Like at this point, it's
Oh,
just like,
unbelievably corrupt. Yeah.
yeah, it's like
It's
Cory Booker, Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris, all of these people. The irony is that the only people that don't feel corrupt are the people that call themselves democratic socialists, and at the same time, I also acknowledge that there is a bit a concern when it comes to socialism, right? And like I don't think that that is necessarily the answer, but like I don't know what the fuck to do at this point, right? Like where
like I don't know what the answer is, but we've tried other shit. So it's
yeah.
like I think that's one of the reasons why Mamdani won. People are just fed up and they're like, well, let's fucking try this.
Yeah. I will say that, like, to Mamdani's credit, like, at least everything I've seen from him, and,
Oh,
and
I love
granted,
Mamdani.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, oh, I
But
think
but
he's
like,
great.
granted, like, I just want to give a little bit of a voice to people who may hate him. Granted, I don't hate him, but like, I just want to at least put that out there. But like, if you hate Mamdani, okay, fine, whatever. But like, at least acknowledge that like everything that he has done and been like pushing out has been like indicative of a politician who actually cares about people, which is
Yes.
the only thing that we've been missing out of our political system for the last
Yeah.
fucking 20 plus years of our fucking lifetime. Because like Mamdani is just like, okay, well, there's not enough fucking bathrooms here. We need to make sure that there are more public bathrooms in New York. I'm sorry,
Mhm.
are you opposed to that? Like, have you ever been to New York?
Yeah.
I walked around
What's
in
the
New York.
reason?
I
Yeah,
could not
what's the
find a
reason to
fucking
be
bathroom. I
against
spent
that?
an hour walking around the city of New York. I'm like, oh, can I go into this gas station? Nope, no public bathroom for you. It is fucking insane. You're in
I'm so
California. I'm
stressed.
assuming it's not that much different. I don't know.
Mhm.
But like in New York, it's like I wasn't able to find a fucking public bathroom anywhere, and like this is not about like I get it. Like,
You're
you don't
right.
want to have the conversation about trans rights. You don't want to have the conversation about like immigration. Let's like fucking focus on the things that we can all agree on. Okay. But
Yeah.
like there's nothing wrong with that. I just like I don't know. It's just, like I don't understand like I think there's a reality of a lot of like people who voted for Trump who were kind of hoodwinked into voting for Trump because they somehow thought that he was outside of the system when the reality is
Oh,
that Trump was
exactly.
within the system 100%. There's no
Oh,
debate
yeah,
about that.
that's how he won. He was seen as an
Like
outsider,
he's
100%.
not even like anti-democrat. He's just like he's literally he
Yeah.
might be anti-liberal, but he's not
Yeah.
anti-democrat because the Democrats are corrupted by the same people that Donald Trump gets
Yeah.
money from. So
No, I
he's
always
literally the
say
same fucking
he
thing.
was
And
he
until
was a
like conservatives can understand and realize that, we can't fucking move on to a point where we can actually do anything useful to like get rid of this fucking government that is clearly intent on just like taking all of our rights away and like making it so that like we literally, this is the reality, is like if you went back 50 years ago, one individual person was able to afford a house off of like a regular ass job.
yeah.
Not like you have to get your master's and your PhD in order
Mhm.
to get this job and you have to be like within the top 5% of all people making wealth. No, you literally just had a job. You were able to
I
afford a
got him out.
house and yeah, and like that was normal. And now we live in a world where, despite the fact that number one, women have entered the workforce, which means that that's double the number of people who are now contributing to the workforce. And
Mhm.
also, we have more technology than ever before, which means that the actual like one individual person can now produce at the same amount of like stuff that like 10 or 20 people previously could be able to produce that. And yet, for some reason, two people can't afford to buy a house. Two people working full time cannot afford to fucking buy groceries. Like, how do you not fucking look at that and say there's a problem here? And
Oh,
there are
yeah.
still it's always the fucking like it's always the free market capitalists that are like, oh, I don't see the problem, fucking hands over their head, and don't even like critically think about these things, and that like drives me insane to some degree.
Oh yeah, it's infuriating, and you have politicians that are dancing around it or ignoring it. And once again, uh, I think that's one of the reasons why people love Mamdani, because he's talking about making New York affordable. He's not talking about these culture war issues that he's not talking about wokeness or identity politics. He's just saying let's make New York City affordable. And the little thing, more public bathrooms, or you shouldn't have to have a master's and a 9 to 5 and 5 side hustles to be able to afford rent when you have 3 roommates. Just like, let's make shit more affordable. And I think people are reacting to that. There is something deeply, deeply wrong with the cost of living, with the economy, and I think people are just fed up, and we're used to politicians that aren't even trying to give us solutions.
Yeah. I mean, you're currently living in California, right?
Yeah.
Are you? I mean, you're probably more familiar with Gavin Newsom than I am.
Yes.
What's your kind of read or vibe on him?
I there my so the headline is I'm not a fan. There are things about him that I like. The things about him I like is the Democrats are such fucking pussies. They're such cowards where everything is, Trump could shoot a baby on live TV and they just release a sternly worded letter. And it's infuriating. He's one of the only Democrats that's not just like a spineless coward right now. That being said, I'm not a fan just because he's clearly going to run for president in 2028, and he's
Yeah.
already, it seems like everything he's doing is just trying to set the stage to eventually win a presidential election, where
Right.
he's too like I don't know what the situation is like where you are, but the situation with ICE in LA is fucking horrifying. It really is a modern day Gestapo, people being just taken away to camps, people that are citizens getting taken away and beat up. And for, in Gavin Newsom, I saw a clip was talking to Ben Shapiro, and he's like, look, I don't think we should get rid of ICE. They're just doing their jobs and shit like that. Or even a lot of the Democrats, I see them saying, like, we don't have to get rid of ICE. We need to reform them. Where it's like, are you fucking listening to yourself? Like,
Yeah.
moving towards the middle to appease the conservatives that's not
I
gonna,
don't know. I mean, like, I have a hard time. Like, I don't know. It's like, yes, I can see what you're saying, moving toward the middle to appease the conservatives, but at the same time, like, I also go like full like conspiracy theory like brain, and like I'm just like they're in on this. Like they're trying to create a narrative because like
oh, yeah,
look at
they're trying to, yeah, well, sorry to interrupt, but I feel like the Democrats, most of them aren't talking about abolishing ICE because they want to regain power and still have ICE, but maybe
right.
ICE is a little less severe and quieter. But I think that's the problem. We have a broken system, and we have Republicans who are making it worse, and Democrats who, at best, want to just keep the system and hope people are okay with it. It's two terrible choices. But yeah, I see Gavin Newsom as someone who's trying to become president. So he's saying and doing what he can, but he doesn't want to alienate potential voters 2 years from now. And
Yeah.
because of that, his opinions change on it. Like, I don't know what he believes. He just believes in becoming president one day. And he's
Right.
charismatic. Like, I like how aggressive he is. I think once again
Yeah,
the
I mean like
Democrats
he
are
he did the
pussies.
whole like mocking Trump thing. That was funny. I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. Like I like that stuff. But
I
I
appreciate that he's willing to like, have somebody like Ben Shapiro on his podcast because like why the
yes,
fuck
we
why
need
wouldn't we live in a society where like whatever, whoever like the main Democrats are and the main Republicans, like why would they not have a
we
conversation
need
and not
yes,
have
they
a
need
debate
to.
about like what like the issues are? That
No,
makes no
they
sense.
need to. Yes, we need some type of unity. We just do. So I'm for that. But I just think, I have my things I like about him, but I just think he's so transparently focused
Yeah.
on trying to become president one day as opposed to doing the right thing today. I feel like
Yeah.
all his decisions are based on, will this alienate anyone when I'm trying to become president?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like, I just like I have a hard time like finding my balance between like there is my like I am a skeptic, right? So at least I'm like skeptical of my own belief. If I feel like I get too far into like the what do you call it, the conspiracy territory,
Mm.
but like I when I look at like Cory Booker, I look at Gavin Newsom, I look at Kamala Harris, I look at like all of these like establishment, Democrats or whatever. I feel like number one, like the core issue that just like it just like it feels like almost it's like I don't know, letter is not the right word, but that might be the best word I have at the moment. Where it's just like it identifies you very clearly as somebody who is very much like kind of you're trying to keep the establishment going as it is, right? You're
Yes,
not trying
yes.
to disrupt that in favor of like what people want, because the reality is the vast majority of Americans, ironically, both on the left and right, are in unison of like we don't want to fund the war in Gaza. We don't want to start going into like wars into other areas. I mean, we
Yeah.
just want to make sure that like we as people in America can afford to live in our own country without fucking having to like, um, you know, number one, rely on like some kind of like, well, the thing is they're slashing all the benefits anyway, so we can't rely on those anyways. But like, it's
Yeah.
just like we don't have the ability to pay for, our houses. We don't have the ability to pay for education. We don't have the ability to pay for healthcare. These things all cost an insane amount of money, and we just don't have the amount of money that we can to pay with the minimum wages and like the lower wages that we're currently
Yeah.
receiving. But like I almost feel like let me go full conspiracy here. So like when I look at like Cory Booker, for example, or even Gavin Newsom, because Gavin Newsom's kind of the same ilk. But like both of them, so Booker kind of came out with like a whole speech about how he was referring to ICE agents and how they were undertrained, which may be, I'm sure it is a very valid point. They're undertrained and they're not, because like I
It's
look
just
for,
random guys.
yeah,
You,
yeah. Well,
you
yeah,
could
that's the
sign
thing.
up for ICE right now.
No, 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 no. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Like I am unemployed, right? And
Uh,
so I got laid off from my job in November. I was a software engineer. I got laid off, and so I'm currently now looking for a job. And one of the places that I look for a job is at USA Government Jobs or whatever. And like
hmm,
you will see, granted, they won't say like ICE agent, but they'll say like you're like border patrol or whatever. But they're offering 75 up to 100,000 or more for ICE agents to just sign up. And like these are like people like they don't require anything. Like
oh,
literally for
it's
me
just
to get a
regular
job.
Joes and giving them
Yeah,
guns and shit.
yeah, but for me to get a job as like a fucking like cashier at like a Walmart, they're like, "Oh, you need 12 years of experience of
Hmm.
in
Yeah.
customer service." And they're like, "ICE agent, $100,000. You don't need any experience. All you
Just
need is a
show up.
body."
Yeah.
Yeah. And like
Just
this
show
is
up and you can kill
reality.
people.
Like
Yeah.
you can you this isn't
It's
something I made up. Go
dystopian.
look it up on USA government jobs, like usajobs.gov or like whatever the other fucking things are. Like they don't have any fucking requirements. It's literally just like you show up. So yeah, there is a reality of like yeah, there is under training because they have no interest in doing that. They want to do it fast and quick and dirty and
Yeah.
that's the reality. But my problem is the narrative, how quickly it gets kind of co-opted and turned into these like culture war things. So I immediately saw on my timeline today, actually, I think, where it was like Cory Booker talking about like, how ICE agents are undertrained. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And obviously the whole, the murder of Renee Good is like big in the headlines still. And so then there was like this kind of like okay then the narrative that the liberals are now kind of pushing, which is like being guided by the Democrats who are not Mamdani, not AOC, not Bernie Sanders. These are like the establishment Democrats, the same people who spent money to make sure that Mamdani could not win,
Oh yeah.
the same people who put more who voted to give more funding to Israel to like continue their project in Gaza
Yeah.
and their project in Somaliland, which is not but like whatever, it's the whole thing. But like the whole problem is that there is just not any transparency in terms of like um it just feels like it's very co-opted in a way that they're trying to drive a very specific narrative. So the very first thing that I saw in response to that was like, okay, well, you're saying that ICE is not real police, which is the thing that like if you look at like conservatives, the thing that they're arguing is not that necessarily that like they thought that like Renee Good should have been murdered. It's more that like they want to like believe in the law. They want to believe in law-abiding citizens, and they believe that the police are still good people, which like whew, it's got to be hard to believe that in 2026, but here we are. It's like if you listen to the black community anytime within the last fucking 40 fucking years, you would know that's very fucking untrue. And not even 40 years, but they've, been vocal about that.
Yeah.
But like, going all the way back to NWA, fuck the police and all these other things. But also, if you just like look at the reality of like where we are in terms of ICE, like they want to believe so badly that these people are upholding like a good moral justified system, right? And like I'm willing to like believe that they've genuinely like they're not everybody, there are genuinely good faith actors who believe that, and because they have not come to terms of the fact that like, oh, Trump is on the same side as the fucking Democrats because both of them are on the same side of the billionaires who are funded like by all of
Yeah.
this. Like that's how I look at everything anyway. But like, just like the very first thing that I saw in response to like, Cory Booker being like, oh, these like ICE train like these ICE, people are untrained and yada 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 was like, okay, well, you're not willing to believe that like these are real cops, but you were willing to believe that a trans woman was a real woman. And it's like that is such a clear talking point, right? Like it's such a because this is the talking point that will divide America, right? It was necessary. It was very deliberate to take this and turn this into a trans issue because otherwise they have nothing. They are struggling so hard right now to create any type of narrative as to why Democrats and Republicans are supposed to hate each other or people who have voted for Democrats and Republicans, which is why right now the Trump administration is failing over and over and over again. They are losing popularity regardless of how you look at it. Even people who are, still supportive of them, the Trump administration is failing regardless of how like it doesn't matter like if you think that they're like supposed to be getting rid of illegals, they're failing at that. If you think they're supposed to be ending all the wars, they're failing at that. They're creating more wars. Everything you can think about, like equality is all the same. Like gay marriage is still legal. Like yeah, he was able to like make abortion illegal in his first term. Like that definitely disrupted like equality for women, and there's still like a push to like try to make sure that women can't vote and like can't have any rights, and like if we go all the way into the AI shit that's going on and like pornography and like women who are having their rights fucking violated because they're being undressed like without their fucking consent. Then you have like Elon Musk, who is like trying to get like young boys onto not onto AI bots and shit in order to like create girlfriends and try to teach them like, oh, this is what a man is like and how a woman is supposed to behave. And all of these things are fucking, number one, they're evil, but number two, like they're all being perpetuated by the same fucking system that we currently live in, which is contributed to by both Democrats and Republicans. And so
yeah. And I think, well, and you essentially touched on this, where they need to keep us divided, where we have a lot in common. We're both, me and someone that voted for Trump or whatever, we're both concerned about the cost of living, I assume, shit like that. We're all more alike than we are different, but the Elons of the world and everyone else pulling the strings, they need us to hate each other so we're not mad at them, so we're not pissed off at the billionaires in the system for fucking us and making the cost of living insane. Like they need us to be mad at each other so we don't band together against them.
Yeah, no, I mean,
They're
I agree with
succeeding
that.
at that.
What's that?
And they're succeeding at that. They're succeeding at making us
Yeah.
hate each other.
They are succeeding to a level that like honestly like makes me feel like it's a hopeless like fight, and I feel like it's almost futile, and like I don't know. I get into my own like like we were talking about like mental health and stuff, but it's like I just like man, I don't know how to how do you make yourself I'm not sure okay is the right word, but how do you make
Yeah.
yourself like how do you get by every day and wake up and not hate everything and want to
It's difficult. One thing I've done, and obviously I'm not advocating for being blind to everything and completely unplugging, but I have an app that locks me out of social media where I'll go on and I'll be like, lock me out of Instagram and
Yeah,
Twitter
what's that
for
called?
like just it's called Freedom. There's a few apps like that
Freedom.
now.
Okay.
And it just being locked out of social media where you don't have a choice, you can't look at it, that's been very helpful for me.
Yeah.
And so things like that. I've also taken a lot of comfort in. Have you ever heard of the fourth turning?
No.
So there's a few books about it. It's a theory that a lot of historians have where American history moves in cycles. And right now we're in the fourth cycle, which is called the crisis era. It moves in 20 to 30 year cycles. Each full thing is about 80-ish years. Right now, we're in a crisis era. The last crisis era was World War II and the Great Depression. The one before that was the Civil War. Now, when the crisis era ends, that doesn't mean everything's perfect. It doesn't mean everything's necessarily good. but things are calmer and less chaotic. So essentially, I've been reading these books about the fourth turning, about how when you're in a fourth turning, when you're living through the crisis era, it feels like it's never going to end. The idea of things becoming better feels literally impossible. It's incomprehensible. It sounds like a fantasy, but things do calm down. So to sum it up, I've been reading a lot about the fourth turning, hoping that's true, and that's been giving me comfort.
Yeah, I will look it up. I just like I always worry about it. You know, it's like granted, like I mean, I'm a skeptic in every way. I want to be optimistic and believe like,
Mm,
okay, yeah, like I get it. Like I've paid enough attention to history where I understand
yeah.
like there are cycles and there are times where
And
like okay,
yeah,
things
and by
get
the
bad.
way,
Yeah,
yeah.
go on.
Sorry to interrupt. I
No, no,
wanted to
no.
throw in. I'm not advocating for complacency or blind optimism, obviously. Like I'm not just saying like everyone just have a cup of coffee and things will get better eventually. I think that's not true and not the best way to look at it. I just
Right,
think it's a little comforting to zoom out and think maybe this is a crisis era and maybe it's not permanent. That doesn't mean when this crisis ends that things will be great or perfect, but
right.
like I said, once again, it's just helpful, but I'm not advocating for, just complacency and just, let's all just be happy and cross our fingers.
Yeah. No, I mean like I get it. Like I again like I have I pay attention to some degree to history and like how things have played out in the past, but also um it's like the things that people say to be comforting, I also have enough anxiety where I'm like, well, okay, things are different, right? Like if we look at like objectively speaking, the way that technology has advanced over a period of time, right? Technology number one is getting better. So what that means is that the people who have the most amount of money have the access to the most limited amount of technology, which means that they have access to things that like the average person does not. A great example could be like a nuclear bomb, which granted that's not new technology, but when you look at like AI, like it's like okay, yeah, the average person, like if they really wanted to, they could definitely like cut all people off of AI, and they could make AI like a super premium feature that only people who above a wealth of like $1 billion are able to access, right? And like and again that can go on to pornography and other things like that, which I think is honestly and inevitability if you look at where we are and the fact that we like continue to defend people on Epstein Island and so forth in our
Yeah.
political system. And no matter how you look at it, like Trump refuses to release the documents, but Biden also sat on those documents for like well over 4 years and was not willing to release them for a reason.
Yeah.
And so both of these things are incredibly problematic. But again, it kind of comes back to what I feel is I tend to feel like, Democrats are the lesser of the two evils, but at the same time, I acknowledge that both of them are very, very fucking embedded in like the money interest and very embedded
Mm.
in
Oh yeah.
kind of
And
fucking
it's
over
yeah.
everybody if it makes them a profit.
Well, and that's the problem. They're the lesser of two evils, but unfortunately, the lesser of two evils is still evil. Where
Yeah.
it's like, what's the antidote?
Well, I
Where's
mean,
the next
like
evil? I want to vote for
the
that.
anecdote would just be ranked choice voting, man. It's like
Yeah.
if we can literally just sit here and say like I can rank everybody one, two, and three.
Mhm.
These are my top three candidates. If enough people vote for independent, independent can win. But if
Yeah.
we have
But they
to
don't
live
want
in a
that.
system, yeah, if we have to live in a system where you can only vote for one person, then like independent will never win because everybody's gonna be
Yeah.
like, well, I can't vote for independent. My vote is lost entirely, which it isn't.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be in a voting system. But like neither Democrats nor Republicans are ever gonna like vote for that because like they
Oh,
just
never.
don't have that would mean that they would give up power. Like that is
Yeah.
But like yeah, I don't know. It's just like it's a very frustrating thing. I kind of forgot where I was going. But like we can kind of pivot a little bit. Sorry. This might be like fully out of the nowhere, but so I
Mhm.
did want to kind of go back to talking about what you were talking about in terms of your like stand-up special and stuff. Number one, you mentioned that like you were in a mental hospital when you were a teenager. So can you explain to me like what that was? Like why were you submitted? That was like I was that after Tucker died
Oh, it
or
was years. So Tucker passed when I was 8 in a freak accident, and then I
right?
was 16
I
or
mean like
17.
just like so he was crushed by an elevator was with
Yeah, he
the
was crushed by an elevator when I was 8, which
right.
obviously created,
I'm very sorry about that, man. It's just
oh
like
yeah,
such
it's
an insane
yeah,
like story. Like I can't
it was
even like
very yeah, it was incomprehensible. It was, uh, you know, that's the only word I have for it, especially as an 8-year-old. You don't even have that much of a concept of death yet.
yeah, no, I mean
Granted, a death of a child and a death that's from a horrific, unimaginable freak accident. So
right.
there was that element. So I carried that trauma for years, well into my teenage years, my 20s, arguably still now. So it was that and being undiagnosed bipolar, where I want to say 16 or 17, and this I was going to the school psychiatrist a lot just because as a teenager, I was a mess of a person. And so the school psychiatrist recommended to my parents to send me to Shepherd Pratt, which is the mental hospital in Baltimore. And
Right.
I ended up being admitted into there for, I want to say 2 weeks. And that's how that started. And it was helpful. Like it was unbelievably helpful. I'm very grateful I went. And luckily I got some material out of it years later. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, can I ask like what was your experience there like? I mean, do you feel out of place or do you feel like, I don't know.
I
I mean, you
felt
had a
a
joke about that about like a person there being
yeah,
like, "Oh, I'm on the moon"
and
or whatever.
yeah, everyone there thinks they're the one person there that's not crazy, but it was really surreal. And there are two weird things about it. Number one, I can't remember. I wear contact lenses, but I wasn't allowed to wear contacts because they were so like you can't have pencils, nothing you could potentially cut yourself with. And the little
Right.
contact lens thing that it comes in is just sharp enough where they were afraid like you can't have that. What if you cut yourself or cut someone else? So I couldn't wear contacts.
Right.
And I go by Drew. My middle name is Andrew. I go by my middle name, but my first name is Edward. But for some reason, they were like, no nicknames. You go by your first name. So everything was blurry because I had no contacts and I was being called Edward, which is my first name, but no one calls me that. So just, it felt like a different world. Everything about it was surreal. I'm like, my name's not Drew in here.
Yeah.
Everything's free.
I just find that odd because you were like, "Oh, this was a good experience." So I mean, like, how did that? Like,
I think a lot of
everything
these
you're saying, I'd be like, "Oh, I hate all this. I don't want."
I did. I'd say the therapy that I got in there, and just through like testing and talking to psychiatrists, they found out the right meds for me, which was a
Right.
game changer. I forget what my meds were then. That and before that, I was taking, it was so blurry. I don't remember if it was Xanax or Klonopin because I thought it was Klonopin, but my parents were like, I think it was Xanax. But I was having panic attacks and I had Xanax. This was leading up to so I was just taking Xanax all day. Like I would take like Skittles. Like I would just take a bunch a day
Right.
and life was just like this groggy nightmare. And I couldn't take Xanax when I was in there, and I kind of detoxed from Xanax. And I think that was really helpful too. Life just became more lucid after getting off of Xanax. Granted, getting the right meds and getting off of Xanax could have still happened if I was in a was didn't go to a mental hospital, but that was the catalyst. So it was this surreal, painful experience, but things came out of it that made my life tangibly better
Right.
afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that. So that was you said after Tucker had passed away, but like, I mean, I guess was that like into your like teenage years or?
Yeah, that was into well, like I said, Tucker, I was 8, and Tucker was also 8 when he got crushed by an elevator. But that was almost like it shaped me so much. It was almost like my origin story, just the trauma from that situation
Right.
where I carried for the rest of my life. So I was still like, I have a joke about this in the special where number one, obviously, I was scared of elevators for a long time,
And
but
Garfield.
Tucker, yeah, Tucker loved Garfield. So I had this weird PTSD thing, PTSD thing with Garfield, where like if I'd be in the classroom and there was a poster of Garfield with a pencil and shit like that, it would like
Yeah.
cause panic attacks, which is funny to joke about, but it was just horrific at the time. And I think the mental hospital helped with a lot of that because that
Yeah.
was just the trauma I carried for. And
Do
I
you, do
think
you still feel a way about Garfield?
I do not, thank God, no.
I mean, he doesn't pop up as much these days.
Yeah, yeah, he's a little wild.
I watch like Fresh Off the Boat and like the grandmother and like the show is like super into Garfield, and that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. No, it took a 180 where I love Garfield now and I associate it in a positive way, but living that way with all that trauma was just exhausting. And I think the mental hospital, it didn't fix it, but it was the first step towards getting better, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then so after that, so I guess you were like what, mid 20s, late 20s when Ellie passed away?
Yeah, I was 28 when Ellie
Yeah.
passed away.
And
And
so
mm,
you just like I'm guessing like how did you find out about that?
So the way I found out was weird. So for the backstory is she still lived in Maryland, but we were like best friends for decades. It was like a sibling type relationship. The way I found out was bizarre, where I got a group text from my friends Kim and Hannah, who thought I already knew. So I got a text from them with like, "Hey, we're so sorry about Ellie because I think Ellie had dated Kim's cousin, so somehow friends of mine found out through
Right.
Ellie's cousin before I did. So I got a text from them like, "Hey, we heard about Ellie. Let us know if you need anything." And I was
And
like,
you
"What the
didn't know
fuck are
what it
you
was,
talking
right?
about?" And I didn't. So the way I found out was crazy, and I called Kim. I was
Yeah.
like, what do you mean?" And I feel bad for her putting her in that situation. She was like, "Oh, I didn't know you didn't know," but.
Yeah.
So the way I found out was a huge shock. And she was obviously, her twin brother died in that horrific way. So she was very tortured. So I was shocked but not surprised, just because I was always worried she died of alcohol poisoning, so it wasn't
Mm.
suicide, but I know the trauma from Tucker's death is what caused that alcohol poisoning, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, I don't know. I struggle with my own alcohol shit, but yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
and
like
as did
she
I.
was
Yeah.
quite young, right? Like, I mean, 20s.
Yeah, she was 28.
Yeah. But I mean, like, also, yeah, that would have been her what, twin brother, so that's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah,
fucking
exactly.
hard to
And
deal with.
I had in my early 20s, I'd say from my early 20s up until COVID, I had a lot of issues with alcohol. So I
Right.
could understand how that could happen. Like I'm sure there are times where I came not this close, but close enough to alcohol poisoning in my 20s. I
I
can see
mean,
how you
so
stumble into that, you know?
yeah. I mean, where are you at now? Are you sober?
I
What
have a
the
healthy relationship with drinking now. Oddly enough,
how did you get to that point? Do you like is there
the
a
way it
moment?
happened was weird. So first off, I was a heavy drinker and I still like to drink, but I'm not really a heavy drinker anymore. But I was a very social drinker. I was a party animal where I wouldn't really drink at home alone, but I'd go out and just get trashed at bars with friends and go to
Right.
parties and stuff. I
I
was
will
that.
say that like at the very least like so in the stand-up comedy world, right, we're required to bring like bringers, right, and like
Yeah.
I know like when I talked to like T Brad at one point and like just in general he would be like, yeah, Drew, he like when he does like stand-up he always brings like 5+ people or something. He like like so it seems like you like always have a good like healthy like social network of people that
I
are like
did. I've always,
yeah.
yeah, a very healthy social network, a lot of great friends, but a lot of partying where I do a
Yeah.
show at Tops. I bring, five, seven friends come to hang and we get trashed after the show, and
Yeah.
which was fun. Those are fond memories. But so because I was such a social drinker, when COVID happened, I didn't drink just because I didn't feel a need to, just because I was at home and that's not how I drink.
Right.
So COVID kind of just made me drink less, and then that kind of stuck for the most part after COVID. So
Yeah.
it's weird. That's why I don't know if I was I'd say I was a binge drinker. I don't know if I was an alcoholic because I think if I was an alcoholic, it wouldn't have been that easy to get rid of. But either way, there was a problem with
I don't know.
drinking.
I mean, like.
COVID kind of
you
fixed.
mentioned earlier like about labels and like that helping
Yeah,
you, but like at the same time, it's like I don't know if labels are always helpful. I'm not sure. It's just
yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah. At
at
the
the end
end
of
of
the
the
day,
day,
it's just like,
tomato,
are you doing
tomato.
a thing that you don't want to do, and it's like, are you trying to
Yeah,
become that? I don't
yeah,
know.
exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just it's a really like difficult thing to kind of navigate. Like I don't know. It's like I've always struggled with grief. Like I don't
Mhm.
know how to necessarily process the death of someone.
Yeah.
So I kind of just like kind of like I'm more of an avoidant person where I'm just like, I push that over to the side and just like kind of move along with my life, but it's not always a good like, processing mechanism because I think it just like ends up being more harmful than helpful. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I get that.
do you like go to therapy and stuff, or are you like
I do. I do go to therapy. It's usually helpful. I hadn't been in a while. It wasn't so years ago I used to go weekly, starting in like 2017, and it helped me immensely. But then it kind of became just do it whenever. So I started going again recently, and yeah, it's helpful. I think I wish we lived in a world where everyone could go to therapy because I think it's super helpful.
I mean, financially, it's always a hard thing too. And then
Exactly.
also, just like, I mean, yeah, there's some stigma to it, which also contributes. But I think, like, more than
Yeah,
anything, like, the financial part of it would be
and
really
the stigma's gotten better. It's still
Yeah.
there, but there's definitely much less of a stigma. I think it's the financial aspect. That's why when someone's like, everyone should go to therapy, it's like, I agree with that sentiment, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's
I
not
make
that
50,000 a year. I can't afford therapy.
yeah.
Like, the housing costs like $3,000
Yeah.
a month for rent. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You're out in California. The costs are fucking insane, I
Oh,
assume.
it's unreal. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Like so getting back onto California for a moment, like I know how long have you been there? You've been there for like well over 10 years more or less. I know you've been kind of
Yeah,
like
I've been
back and
here
forth.
for a little over 10 years. Yeah. 10
Yeah.
years into change.
So I mean like would like can you tell me like your own personal experience of what you've seen in California? Has it gotten worse? Has it gotten more like, because I mean like obviously I look at it both ways, right? Like on one hand, like you can sit here and blame like Democratic leadership and say that
Yeah.
like oh like like there are more homeless people because of like Gavin Newsom or whatever. But at the same time, I tend to think more so like Democrats and Republicans are both kind of aiding people who have the most money
Yeah.
at like Silicon Valley, and like those people have like they literally like they have the lowest overheads. Like they don't have to pay for a lot. They just they have to pay engineers, which do have high salaries, but like
Mhm.
their actual like what it is the supplies that is required to do what they do. Anybody can program on a computer. You can do it for free, and like that
Mhm.
is the cheapest hobby. I can't even fucking learn how to do woodworking without buying a table saw and like several different
Mhm.
saws and learning the mechanics of it. But I can learn how to program for
Yeah.
free with VS, Studio Code. And these are the people that, software companies are hiring, and they're making like millions and millions of dollars or even billions of dollars off of the labor of these software, developers. But then it tends to lead to the increase of pricing of like housing and stuff around California, around that area. So I mean, like in general, I guess I kind of wanted to know what your personal experience
Yeah.
is, what you've kind of viewed in terms of when you started in California, where it is now, how things
Yeah.
are kind of like progressing, and whether you I don't know whether you think that's going in
Yeah.
a
So I'd say my answer is kind of a two-part answer where, I came out here for stand-up, and when you're really, really focused on stand-up or whatever goal, your life view, for better or worse, kind of becomes very narrow and kind of selfish, where it's almost like I'm not paying that much attention to the macro level of what's around me because I'm so focused on this goal.
right.
So I'm sure there's a lot of changes in California that I hadn't noticed that much just because I'm so narrow-minded. But I absolutely have seen a rise in the cost of living and a rise in rent. I mean, just in 10 years. And obviously, when I moved here, it was already a high cost of living, but it's gotten way worse. I see so many friends moving just because it's insane out here, and obviously it's insane everywhere. But Yeah, I've lucked out. So I I lived before I lived in my current apartment, I lived in a house and I was living with like five friends. So it was six of us in the house. So because of that, my our rent was dirt cheap.
Right.
And the apartment complex I live in now, one of my girlfriend's best friends used to own it. She passed, God rest her soul. But because of that, she gave us a great deal. So I've been able to stay afloat through sheer luck of situations where I don't have to pay that much rent and I
Right.
have no overhead. But in general, the cost of living out here is out of control. A
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And I don't
Yeah.
know
I mean,
what to blame it on. I think you could, I don't know if I don't know what to blame it on, but it's obviously also a nationwide issue.
yeah.
And it's just at a point where it's like, I don't know, something's got to give. I don't know what,
Yeah.
but something's got to give.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I mean like that's pretty much all I had off the top of my head. I don't know if there anything that you wanted to kind of like, touch on briefly or are there anything that you want to plug or whatever?
I'd say, even though it's a few years old, I want to plug All My Friends Are Dead. Just it's on YouTube. Type in Drew Landry, All My
Yeah,
Friends Are
it's a
Dead.
great special.
And the new special, Drew Landry, 10 Things I Hate About Drew. You can listen to the album version wherever you listen to albums. You could rent it or buy it on Apple TV. You could watch it for free on Amazon, but type in California 5 and
Yeah.
click on my episode. So yeah, just All My Friends Are Dead primarily, but also the new one.
Yeah. One last thing, if you don't mind me asking, because I just
Yeah.
wanted to know. Like you have gone on tour with Carlos Mencia, Eliza Schlesinger, and Dana Gold. So I mean, like, what was that like? I mean, you were much younger, I think, at the time, right?
Mhm.
And you were kind of just
Yeah.
like learning the ropes in terms of comedy. Like,
Mhm.
are there any like what are things that you kind of like took away from that? What did you learn from that? And like, what were your experiences like in terms of those things?
Yeah, they were all very positive experiences. So with Mencia and Eliza, I was in my late teens and early 20s. I learned a lot from them. Dana, I toured with a little more recently, and I still open for him on and off. And by then, for lack of a better way to put it, I'd kind of already figured out the ropes.
Right.
So I didn't learn a ton from him. I did learn things from him, but just I was more fully formed than I was with Mencia and Eliza, and those were fantastic experiences, both of them. Just being able to perform for huge crowds and huge crowds that want to be there. Because, when you do comedy when you're coming up, you perform in bars where,
Yeah.
maybe there's 20 people there. They probably didn't know there was going to be a show. It's more of a
Yeah.
hostage
There
situation.
there were some shows where like we like it felt like we were almost like,
We were ruining their night.
yeah, exactly.
They're trying to
Exactly.
watch the
I
game.
remember in particular, I went to Jilly's in like Pikesville and like yeah, I went there. I kind of like had like my own like mental breakdown at the on stage, but it was just like, dude, it's like I wanted to tell jokes, but I also understand like I empathize and understand like for their perspective, like they didn't want comedians coming here to
Yeah.
tell jokes. Like they probably come here like all the time. They're just like wanting to eat their food and hang out. And like for
Yeah.
whatever
And
reason, they decided to have like a comedy show. And like
yeah.
yeah, but it really it's a huge difference when people like want you there versus like
Oh yeah, it's just when you start comedy, so much of it is uphill battles where you're trying to win over crowds that are not into this.
yeah.
And and then it's this weird thing where you get good at that and then you get rewarded with good crowds. So just the dynamic of like this is a big crowd that's excited to be here.
I,
It's
I,
like
I will argue though, because like this is a thing I've seen with a lot of stand-up comedians, right? Where like they will come out with their very first stand-up special, it will be fucking gold. It will be amazing, amazing, amazing. Their second one sucks. And I think
oh
the
yeah,
reason for that, number one, like you said, they didn't have to try out that material with people who were like not
yeah,
willing to give it to them. Number two, I think there's a sense of like just like over it, like you probably have spent like 10 years of your life like culminating like your
yeah,
best
the first
greatest hits.
special, yeah.
yeah, these are the greatest hits of like the last 10 years, and you put them all into your stand-up special. But then when you come out with your second special, it's like you wrote all this material within a year. So
Yeah, and not
I think
only
it
that,
definitely
but
contributes to that.
yeah, and it's this weird thing, the more successful you are, the less you have to try. So you'll see superstar comics in their 10th special, they're doing shit where it's like, if you weren't famous, this would be bombing. If you were just
Yeah,
some guy performing at the, but they're excited to see you and you're a big name, so they're laughing. And I get that they've earned that, but it is a weird dynamic where it's like you're doing like hack shit that wouldn't fly at an open mic, but you're in a stadium, and yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting to see.
I mean, I gotta say, I respect people like one person I can think of off the top of my head because I know he went to High Tops was like Hannibal Buress, and he would like kind of
Oh
he like
yeah.
will show up to a stand-up comedy thing and just be like, "Hey, can I get like 15 minutes or whatever?" And he doesn't
Yeah.
announce himself. He doesn't like he's not like there because people want to see him. He's just like literally trying out material in front
Yeah.
of a crowd
Going
that doesn't
back in
know
the
who he is.
trenches to test out your material. Exactly.
Yeah, and I think those are honestly like some of the greatest comedians in my
Oh
opinion.
yeah. And Hannibal Buress is brilliant.
Yeah. But yeah, all of that. Thank you so much for taking out the time to talk to
Yeah.
me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%. If there's nothing else, I'll let you go, let you enjoy your night. I have to go to the
All right.
bathroom. I've been.
All right. Thanks. Have
All
a good
right, see you,
night.
bro. You too.
See ya.